Are you living the Delaware beach lifestyle? You can't live at the beach and do nothing. This up-and-coming year-round area has lots to offer. Find out where to eat, play, and serve. Living the ultimate dream.
All right, welcome to the 302 Lifestyle Beach Podcast. Dylan Ewing here with Adrian with Salted Vines, and this place is so awesome. We have known Adrian for quite a while now, back when he was Fenwick Wine Cellars, and his family is actually 4 generations deep in wine, and just being in a business like that, it's so awesome because it's usually in part with having good times and happy times, and so I just can't imagine the joy that brings to somebody. But Adrian, enough of me blabbing. Everyone's interested. We always give out your wine in our business to these homeowners moving down here, and everyone just loves it and just loves your vibe. And I see you guys all on social media. And tell us a little bit about how did your family get into this? How did you end up in 302? And give a little backstory.
Sure, Dylan. So, as you said, I'm a 4th generation grower. My family migrated over from northern Italy many years ago. Why my great-great-grandfather decided to set up base in Erie, Pennsylvania is, beyond me. I don't know why he do that. I mean, you only get 4 months of sun. The rest of the time it's all gray skies and snow and cold. But anyway, that's where they chose to set up. So that's where I was born and raised. We're on the shores of Lake Erie, very predominant agricultural area. Cherries, peaches, apples, blueberries, grapes, watermelon, all sorts of crops are grown in that little microclimate. Mainly because that Lake Erie, kind of buffers you. So it gives you a nice long fall where it's warmer. And then in the spring, it's cold. So it holds the buds back and nothing breaks bud or blooms too early. Then if you get a late spring frost, you're cooked. Well, that protects you from that. So that's kind of why agriculture is so predominant there. So grew up there, born and raised on a farm of 200 acres of cherries, peaches, apples, grapes, some vegetables. We had a farm market. And most of the time I was a little kid, our grapes went to Welch's. We grew a lot of Concords and Niagaras for Welch's grape juice.
Oh, cool.
Somewhere along like the 1980s, they decided they were going to quit paying the farmers the way they were doing it. And they were going to spread your payments out over 7 years. Like you got 70% of your money over 3 years, a third, and the other 30% went into a certificate that matured in 7 years. So my dad was like, that doesn't make sense because we have to pay all of our expenses now. So he started ripping out Concord grapes, got into the cash market. We started planting hybrids like Saval's, Vidal's, Tremonette, things like that, Foch, Marquette, Regent, Chamberson. And he started just pressing grape juice and selling grape juice to wineries. And first it started off locally, and then it grows and it becomes regionally, and then it becomes, national. So he's got a very large business. I think he's the 2nd or 3rd largest supplier of grape juice on the entire Eastern Seaboard. So he supplies grape juice and grapes to wineries all over. And then somewhere along the line, so I went to school at Penn State 94 to 98 for horticulture. And I think it was my junior year, he said, we're going to start a winery now that you're coming home and I'll have some help here because we're selling juice to all these wineries and they're telling us, hey, we're all winning medals with your juice. It's good juice. You guys should have a winery too, because it would add credibility to your juice business.
Yeah.
So he was like, okay, let's do it. So he decided we were going to start a winery. So that's what we did. So we started Arrowhead Wine Cellars in 97, I believe. And then I got a phone call in August of 2001 from the world's largest private label juice manufacturer. At the time, their name was Cliffstar Corporation out of Dunkirk, New York. And they said, hey, we're looking for someone to come manage our grower relations department. The 2 guys that work there, 165, 175, we've got no succession plan. We can't let them retire until they have someone trained. So I went to work for this company where I was in charge of managing the contracts for the grape growers, the cranberry growers, the prune growers, and the apple growers all over the world to bring in enough fruit that this company could process and make juice to fulfill their bottling needs. And, Cliff Star, every grocery store in the world was a customer. I mean, any private label, you go to Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco, anything that's a store brand, they made it.
Wow.
So, we had a lot of fruit. So they call and say, hey, we want you to come work for us. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm working with my dad on the farm. I'm starting a winery. My dad looked at me and he's like, you out of your mind? He goes, get your butt out of here. He goes, go do this. You can always come back here. So I'm like, no, I really don't want to do this. He's like, it's a great experience. So they sweeten the pot. They go, look, you're going to have 2 pilots, a Learjet, and an Amex card. I'm like, okay, I'm in. So at 23, I was flying around the world contracting fruit. Did that for a couple of years. And then our neighbors from the winery called us and said, hey, we bought another business. We really want you to come head up the sales. And I was like, I don't know. I have a Learjet and 2 pilots. What are you going to offer? They're like nothing.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, okay, that sounds like a good deal. So I went and worked with them. Best thing I ever did, because they were great mentors for business. Rich King and Dave Heth, they owned the company, and they were like a second set of fathers to me and taught me everything I know about business. And great education. So I worked for them for 17 years. In the midst of all that, I knew I wanted to start a winery. So I ended up moving down here in 2008. That's another story. Started Fenwick Wine Cellars. Started in the Strip Plaza, as you know. So the story on how I met Dylan was we did a little renovation in a 1-week time frame. And we were like on a tight schedule. We were losing our butts down there. So anyway, we had this tight schedule to get this renovation done. The place was a mess. There was construction dust everywhere. Yeah. We had to get open. So I'm going through the internet trying to find cleaning companies, someone I thought could come in and clean the place, right? So I see this thing for that guy with a broom, and I'm like, okay. So I start looking into it, and he's a Marine, he's young, I'm like, this is the kid I want. So I call Dylan. I'm like, hey, I got a project. He's like, no problem, I'll be there. So he shows up with a crew of people, bring their own equipment. They got vacuums. They're vacuuming. Dylan was on a ladder vacuuming the black ceiling tiles, trying to get all the dust off. And you could see right where he was and where he wasn't. It was awesome.
That's funny. Yep.
Yeah, you remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember. I never did that again, actually.
Neither did we. We shut that down and just built a new building. It was easier.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So that's kind of a little bit about my background. Kind of grew up in ag, went away for it for 17 years, and then came back because I enjoyed the business challenge of it from what I learned through my job, and then still wanted to do the grape. I love growing grapes. That's what's fun for me. The winemaking part, I don't care so much about. It's the growing of the grapes I like. Winemaking is just how you sell the grapes.
Oh, so dive in a little deeper on this. So I know you mentioned like hybrids, and you mentioned, so I know you have a big variety of wines, but tell us a little bit about the grapes. Is there only specific types of grapes you can grow here? How do they do? Sure. What do you like about the grape?
Sure. So when you talk about grapes, you used to have 2 major categories, right? You have grapes, and then we're going to divide it. So you have Vitis labrusca, which is that's the Latin species for the North American grapes. So if they're North American native, you would call them Vitis labrusca. That would be your Concord, Niagara, Catawba, Steuben, Delaware, all that sort of stuff. The other side of that course would be your Vitis vinifera, and that's your European style grapes. So that's your Chardonnay, your Cab Sauv, Cab Franc, Merlot, Syrah, all that sort of stuff. Somewhere along the line, science got involved, and they created what we call a French hybrid. Okay. So this is now a third right down the middle. Wow. Where we're taking the characteristics of the Vitis vinifera, the European styles, but we're grafting those and doing GNA manipulation to create varieties and then grafting them on rootstocks that grow natively somewhere else. Okay. So like a Traminette is a cross between two grapes. I think one of them's a Riesling and maybe a Gewürztraminer or something. I forget. Don't quote me on that one, but I mean, it's, they have crosses, right? Like you take two grapes and you like that, and you get this new one. So the university started developing these new hybrids is what we call them. So like Traminette's a hybrid, Chamberson's a hybrid, Saval, Vidal, Regent, Foch, Marquette. These are all hybrids that are grown a lot in the mid-Atlantic because they're cold hardy. And that's the thing. They can withstand the cold winter that a Cabernet Sauvignon can't, that a Merlot can't. And that's the issue. It's the climate where you're growing. So now we have these three types of grapes. Native Americans do real well here. Your hybrids are designed to grow here. And where we are here at the beach in the sandy soil and far enough south, we can grow vinifera very well. As you get up to where I'm from in Erie, no growing vinifera there. They die. They don't take the cold, harsh winter. Growing season isn't long enough. And that's why they have the hybrids. So it's a whole science unto itself.
Yeah. So I've been interested in this type of thing for a while because a friend of mine who does a lot of landscaping and stuff, he'll take like a part of a tree branch and stick it onto like a completely different type of fruit or something. So he had one tree that had 3 different fruits on it. Yep. And I'm like, this is just blowing my mind. But so it's amazing what the earth can do and stuff. So, okay. So what about the winter? Do the grapes, I know my mom used to grow some grapes. Obviously the grapes aren't there in the winter. So is that the time where you're fermenting and all that stuff? How's that work?
Yeah. So if you start to cycle out grapes in the spring, like here it'd be late April, they would grow, then they'd go dormant. They'd lose all their leaves. The green tissue would harden off. They'd go dormant. And then during the winter months, you would prune and train them. Okay. Then the next spring, you have a vine established, sometime around April, May, they start to break bud. So it's a term we call to identify a stage in the process, bud break. Okay. That's when the little buds, they go to a match head looking thing with fuzz, and they bust open. You can actually see the leaf. Then they grow, then they develop fruit, and then somewhere around the 4th of June, here, we go through what we call bloom. That's when all the flowers are present. If you go back to your plant sex classes, your pistils and your stamens, and grapes are, naturally pollinated. You don't have to add bees. They've got both sex parts on the same flower. So they pollinate themselves. And that's what we call fruit set. So hopefully, after about 10 to 14 days, they're through bloom and you had a good fruit set, meaning all the flowers got pollinated, and now you actually have a berry growing. That'll grow in size. It'll remain green. It'll grow in size through August. About the 3rd week of August, we go through what we call veraison, which is when they start to turn color. Mm-hmm. So if they're a white grape, they start to turn that translucent yellowish, greenish. And if they're a red grape, they start to turn purple. And then that's the sugar buildup from there on to maturity, which is when they're ripe and ready to go. Then you pick them. We pick here in October, press the grapes, ferment the grapes on the skin, press them out. And then during the winter months, like right now, we're racking, we're filtering, we're bottling from 2 years ago. We're bottling that stuff now.
Wow.
So we're aging, we're doing tests, we're blending, and then we're getting ready to go out and start pruning the vines next week. We'll start.
Wow, what an incredible process. And to know that all of that goes into one little bottle, and it's just what like $20-$30 or something, and it's like, holy cow, this is like a huge like a long process.
It is.
That's pretty incredible. So Okay, so now you guys have continuously added more and more grapes onto your land, and so you guys are in Frankfurt. And before we get too far, guys, if this is sounding like somewhere where you want to check out, these guys got events and all kinds of stuff going on. You want to check out saltedvines.com and also check out their Facebook. We'll put all the links down below if you guys are looking to meet up with these guys and check out some of their wine. And it's nice that you guys are so local here and serving the whole area here. Now, you've been adding on grapes to your land? Have you filled up the entire area that you want to do? How much farther?
No, we've got a 26-acre farm. Right now, we've got 4 acres in grape production. I have Merlot, Cab Sauv, Malbec, and I just planted Vermentino a year ago, which is a northern white Italian grape. So it's our first white wine on the property. So we have plans to continue planting. So we've got when we're done, we should have about 22 acres under vine. And the rest of it will be buildings, driveways, headlands, yard space, etc. So we got some more planning to do. We do a little bit each year so we can take care of them. We're going to hopefully be starting an addition on this building to give us more production space and a bigger tank farm. We're out of space inside the room to put tanks. And then we want to do an event venue out back by the woods. So we've got that all approved, and we just have to start construction when we feel it's the right time. So that's the plan for the rest of the property.
Cool. Now, I know right now, currently, you guys got a few good events going on with tasting and pairing with chocolates. So I know there's a lot of chocolate lovers out there. And Daisy, I think we just had we just had Barn Hill on, actually. And so I love the sloss. So Daisy's actually going to check out the Sipping with the Sloss. So if you guys are looking forward to that, that's on their events page. You can join in that fun. I think we might even do like a little live feature while Daisy's doing that.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool to have her do live during that. They're neat events.
Yeah. So awesome, man. And it just sounds like you're going to get bigger and bigger. Now, how far is your reach going with purchasing of the wine and all that stuff? How far deep into Delaware do you guys get?
Well, we try to retail everything out of our facility.
Okay.
And we do that for a couple of reasons. We've got restaurants all over the place calling, saying, "Can we get it? Can we get it? Can we get it?" And, the answer is I'd love to, but I can't, because the rules in which you have to do it are, you got to go through a distributor. Well, a distributor doesn't want to talk to me. I'm too small. They don't make any money on me. And then once you get put in that book, anybody can buy it if they want and carry it. And that's not what we're about. We don't want to be big. We just want to be the best. And we want to remain our boutique style atmosphere where we can control everything. So like here, we can control how it's stored. It's not sitting on a shelf in a window with sunlight beating on it all day, which might happen at a liquor store somewhere. Not all, but there's some out there that don't care. We can keep it the right temperature. We can, we know when we open a bottle because we date them. So we know if that bottle's, 2 or 3 days old, we're going to get rid of it and open a fresh bottle when we're doing, not that happens much anymore. But down in Fenwick, we'd have bottles open for 7 days, because it was such a different business. Here, you can't keep a bottle open for 2 hours and it's gone. You have to get into another one. So that's not a problem anymore, but it's just the ability to control the quality. And then the way we do tastings, when we're allowed to do tastings pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID, we take you through the tasting in a very controlled educational manner where you get to try all of them and you get to learn something about them, because a lot of people come in with a preconceived notion of what they like. And a lot of it is kind of funny because they've seen a movie or they have friends that like wine. So you come in, you ask them, "Hey, what do you like?" "Oh, I like dry reds." "Do you? Do you know what a dry red is?" "Oh, yeah, I have them all the time." "Great." So, they ask for a Cab or a Merlot and they taste it and they got this look on their face that's so puckered up, and it's like, "You know what? Try this one." You give them a sweet Concord, right? This is Welch's grape juice for adults. You give them one of those, they're like, "This is the best wine I've ever had in my life." I'm like, "Yeah, you don't like dry reds. You're a sweet drinker, They're like, "No, I'm dry." I'm like, "Nah, trust me." Like sometimes you have to go get the hydrometer out of the lab. You pour the wines into some graduated cylinders, put the hydrometer in, show them. This one's got -2 residual sugar. This one's got 7. Like, okay, you're talking about tens of milligrams of sugar per liter versus none. Like, now you're a sweet wine drinker, buddy. And they're like,
oh, this is a perfect conversation because, well, a lot of the people I talk to, I don't think people really understand the concept behind wine. And if you really dive into it, what I've noticed is that, especially from, Italians and that type of thing, there's different wines for different foods. It all, and what I learned was that, I might think that I'm a sweet wine drinker, but if I'm eating something else, it doesn't go right with it. So tell us a little bit about that. How do you find what wine works for different things and myself?
Well, what we decided to do, Dylan, was we said, there's a 3x3 matrix, right? So if you just draw 9 squares on a piece of paper, and across the top, you put, color, and down the side, you put sweetness. And you start with, on the top left, you say, across the color, you go white, blush, red, and then down the side, go dry, semi, and sweet. So that means there's 9 categories of wines, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can have a dry red, a semi-dry red, and a sweet red. A dry blush, a semi-dry blush, and a sweet blush, which we'd call a rosé. And then you'd have, a dry white, a semi-dry white, and a sweet white. So you got 9 boxes you got to have a wine in, so that when someone comes in, like yourself or your wife, oftentimes couples have a way different taste palette. So if you have all just dry reds, you're only appealing to, that much of your audience. If you have all sweets, you're only appealing to that much of your audience. Then you divide it up by color too, right? So we've got 9 boxes that we try to put at least one wine in each box. So when you come in, we do a tasting. We start off with our dry whites. Then you move to the semis. Then you move to the sweets. Then we do the blushes. Then we do the reds. Somewhere in those 9 boxes, you will find one you like at a minimum. And then that zeroes in on what type of style you like. And then, like you said, you can add food to the mix, and now, everything changes. Because you could have a big, bold Malbec, really earthy, oaky, lots of body, and you might not like it by itself. You put a nice, filet or ribeye on the grill, different story.
Yeah.
So it's, it really does matter what you're pairing it with, whether you like it or not, and everybody is different, and there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah. Now, if someone comes in, they do a wine tasting, what tell us a little bit about that experience. And do you have something in between the wines? Do you have to wait a little bit in between, or they start like tasting the same after a while?
Well, you hope not, but yes. So you come in, we get you a glass, little tasting glass. We get you a tasting note. We get you a bag of individual pretzels to cleanse your palate in between. We get you a pen so you can make notes. So we start and we go in order. We give you a ½ ounce of each one. And, there's a description you can read, but the person doing your tasting usually tells you about the grapes, where they came from, like what it pairs well with, what you should be experiencing. Like, Pinot Grigio, you should get nice, crisp apple flavors, And when someone tells you that, all of a sudden it registers in your brain and go, oh, yeah, I get that. Or like if you try, like our Blackwater Red, which we're blending again, you taste that and you get some fruit, you get some fresh tobacco. And it's like, well, what does fresh tobacco taste like? I don't know. But when someone tells you that, you can kind of envision it when you're tasting and go, oh, yeah, I get the tobacco,
Oh, yeah.
So it's pretty cool. But yeah, you want to have a pretzel in between and cleanse your palate and just take your time. It's not a race. A good tasting usually takes 40 minutes to go through all of our wines. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. We meet a lot of people like you do from all over the place.
Yeah, love it, man. And so is it true that, when you're younger, you usually kind of migrate towards the really sweet stuff, and then you kind of grow into a different type of palate and appreciation for, kind of twirling it around, smelling it?
We call that sophistication, Dylan.
Okay. Yeah, I'm learning. That's funny.
Yes, that's a very true statement for most people. Again, you're painting with a broad brush when you say it, but yes, it's it's fairly true. I mean, I remember the first time I tried wine, I spit it out. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And then, I tried a sweet catawba. I mean, like 7-8% residual sugar with chocolate covered strawberries, and I could do it, and it was like, okay, I can drink catawba. Then it was like, I can drink a Riesling.
Yeah.
And if I tried a dry wine, man, it was like, oh my God, this is horrible.
Yeah.
And now it's the opposite. If I try a sweet wine, my stomach just can't handle it.
Wow,
It's sick to my stomach because of the sugar. So
yeah, lots of sugar in that stuff. And especially when you're younger, you kind of, grab the cheapest thing on the shelf and it's just loaded with like half sugar, and same thing. And then it just kind of migrates into, okay, just same with beer, when I was younger, I tried a beer, I was like, oh my gosh, this is gross. And then after a while, you want to, keep trying stuff and your taste buds change too. So
usually it involves trying to impress a girl, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I'm a man. I can drink this. Yeah. Oh, man. So, Adrian, I'm actually from Upper Pennsylvania, Williamsport.
Yep.
So I've been all over the country, and moving to Delaware, man, that's really why we wanted to do the 302 lifestyle on here. It's just turned into one of my favorite places in the whole country. I mean, you get the different seasons, it's nothing's really too bad either way.
Right.
So people moving down here, what can they expect? How was your transition from PA or traveling to a full-time resident in Delaware Beach?
Well, like you said, you have 4 distinct seasons, which a lot of the country doesn't have. In Erie, we had winter and construction season. That was it. The roads were always under construction if there wasn't snow on them.
Yeah.
We didn't have a spring at all. We had a beautiful fall, short summer, big winter. But down here, you do get 4 equal seasons. You really do. That's enjoyable. Off season's very enjoyable because it's easy to get around. It's easy to get into restaurants, easy to get into the grocery store, stuff like that. During season, it's a little tough, but that's what makes all of our businesses go round. We need that. And, it's getting longer and longer. It's not just the 3 months of summer anymore. It's probably 6 to 7 months now, which is good. I mean, the area is growing. I think where people moving down here from some of the more, robust cities in like Northern Jersey and Philly, New York, that sort of stuff. I think when they come down, they need to be prepared for it isn't the city. There isn't doctors on every street corner. There isn't dentists on every street corner. It's hard to find a primary care physician, an eye doctor, or a dentist because they're full, they're at capacity. Same thing with chiropractors, all that stuff. There's not as much to do per se. Like, we don't have all the movie theaters that you would have in a city. You don't have, the arts. There's no operas. There's no this. There's no that. But, there are some gems in the rough. Like, you've got Dickens Parlor Theater. Does a great job with comedy for adults and kids. My daughter and I would go there weekly when she was 3-4 years old. And it's a lot of fun, even for the adults. You've got the beaches, you've got great restaurants, great food. You've got good golf, lots of areas to exercise, whether it's, running through trails in some of the state parks, on the beach, just on the roads, riding bikes. You've got all that. You've got a plethora of gyms and private trainers and yoga and all that stuff. So there's a lot of good, and there's some infrastructure that needs to happen. Schools are overcrowded and things like that. But they're working on them. It's just, I think the benefit of moving here though is the little taxes, right? We pay virtually no income tax, virtually no property tax, and no sales tax.
You can't beat that.
If you start wanting all those amenities, that all comes at a price, and the price is your taxes go up, So you kind of have to look at it and say, what are you willing to live with? And how much money do you want to part with every year to have those amenities? And I think that's kind of where we're at. It's where we're at that decision-making time of saying, if we want more infrastructure, we're going to have to ante up money in our taxes because it's got to come from somewhere. So do we want that, or did we move here because we don't want the taxes and we're willing to live with the no infrastructure?
That's a great point. And, I'm hoping to get some of those officials on here to talk about that kind of stuff.
Good luck with that.
We'll see how that goes. But Oh man, so we came from Las Vegas, and
One of my
I mean,
favorite cities.
yeah, and a lot of people look at Vegas and they think of the Strip, but that's only a piece of it.
Piece of it, right?
When you live out there, it's a regular city. There's no mosquitoes, by the way.
Yes.
And but there's just so many things to do and see. But the difference was for us and we thought we never want to be away from California and Vegas and all that stuff. So when we came out here, immediately when winter hit, we were like, oh my gosh, we made a horrible mistake, like everything shut down. Well, that was almost 10 years ago. And since then, it's become more of a year-round thing.
Yeah.
And I think people can really appreciate, although like New York, DC, Vegas, all those places, you have like these big, robust, convention centers and stuff like that. But when you get down to the beach area, you get more of like a privatized, one-on-one, intimate setting, where you can still do anything you want to do, but it's more in lines of like a little single place where there's maybe like 20 people,
Right.
And actually, once you get used to that, you appreciate it. Yeah, it's really refreshing. You get to know people, really cool, man. I love this stuff. So, okay, Adrian, what was one of your biggest mistakes being in business?
Oh boy, there's lots of those. I mean, you want the biggest one? The biggest one, looking back on it with the knowledge I have now, I would say was starting my business, Fenwick Wine Cellars, with the knowledge I had from a different geographic region, thinking it would work here. And what I mean by that is, at home, wineries are all called wine cellars. So like in the town I'm in, there's like 15 wineries and they're all wine cellars: Arrowhead Wine Cellars, Presque Isle Wine Cellars, Heritage Wine Cellars, and you just go right down the list. So naturally, I thought it should be Fenwick Wine Cellars. So boy, was I wrong. People come in, they think you're a high-end liquor store and they're asking for all this stuff. I'm like, we're a winery, and they're looking at you like, winery? Like, nah, it's not a winery. This is a Fenwick Wine Cellar. This is a liquor store. And, we fought that for the 6 years we were there. And then the other big mistake, which, we kind of knew we were doing, was the location. But, we had to do a test to see if the area and the market could support a winery. And so we rented that space you saw in Fenwick in a strip plaza. Well, it just didn't work. So after like 3 years of just losing, I called, a guy we both know, Len Kidwell at Score, and said, hey, look, we used Score to start our winery at home 20 years ago, and it was real successful. I remember the experience. It was great. I said, why I didn't call you up front, I don't know. I just forgot. So, but here I am. Come help me. So he shows up and did a couple, did the original interview, and he did all his fact finding. And he goes, okay, we're going to lunch. I've got some recommendations for you. I'm like all excited. I got a pad and paper. I'm ready to go. I'm going to lunch, meeting him, And he goes, you can put that away. He goes, you don't need that. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, this is simple. He goes, you're not going to need your pad and paper. I go, okay, fine. If I said it. He goes, so pay attention. He goes, this is really simple. Okay. He goes, 3 things. Number 1, change your name. Put the words Vineyard and Winery in the name. Number 2, change your location. He goes, get out of an asphalt parking lot, strip plaza, get out in the country, look like a winery. Number 3, quit your job and be here full time. And I go, is that it? And he goes, that's it. I'm like, oh my God. Wow. So and those of us that know Len can appreciate how black and white he is with that stuff.
So anybody wondering, Score, if you're interested in starting anything really, is a free service for business owners. Actually, we got hooked up with Jim Rivette, awesome people. I just love those guys there. They dedicate their time for free for you as someone starting out or in a business.
Right.
So definitely check that out. Score.org, I think.
Well, yeah, and you find them through the Small Business Administration Office. It stands for Service Corps of Retired Executives.
Yep.
And as Dylan said, it's completely free. Great mentors to bounce ideas off of, talk to, give advice. So anyway, so that was the biggest mistake I think I made, because I lost 6 years of not really going anywhere, just digging a hole, because of those 3 things. And we've now since corrected that, and the business is flourishing. So that was probably the single biggest mistake.
So what I'm hearing, Adrian, and for any of you guys interested in any of this stuff, I'm hearing, choose something you're passionate about. So I hear, Adrian, you're just so passionate about grapes and serving people, and just you're so intrigued by the process and everything and helping people. And it really just shows with your business and everything you've done. Then I'm also hearing that, when things aren't working, ask for help. You know what I mean? And
Sooner than
through that,
later.
yeah. So in that process, talk to somebody that's been through it or has. Don't think you know everything.
Oh.
But I'm also hearing, through mistakes, you might not have ever have started in Fenwick or not Fenwick, Frankford, or started what you did had you not gone through that process of learning and figuring stuff out, right?
Yeah, it's very true. I tell people all the time, I said, one of the things I learned in business school that I think was invaluable, and it's so simple, right? You think, why do you have to pay all this money for this education, when this was probably the single one biggest takeaway was find other business owners, right?
Yeah.
And use them as your peer group, because chances are they have or are experiencing the same problems you are. You go home and you try to tell your spouse, they don't understand. You go home and try to tell friends, they don't understand because they don't own a business. They don't run a business. You can't expect your employees to understand what you're going through because they don't own a business. Exactly. So if you find another business owner locally, even if it's as simple as once a month, you get together and you go get wings and a beer for an hour or two, and you just chit chat, right? It just gives you someone to vent to, or to, bounce ideas off of, or just chat with, and they can tell you, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Or, hey, I tried that once and it didn't work for me. Here's where it went wrong. Be aware of that, and it's just casual conversation of just bouncing ideas off of other people that are in the same situations, and that was for me the biggest thing. And I talk to people all the time. And a lot of people come to me and ask questions. I'm like, what are you coming to me for? Like, I'm dumb, They're like, no, you've done it though. I'm like, I failed a lot. That's how I did it though.
Yeah, a lot of times you really need that failure, and you can get hung up on the past or the problems or the mistakes. But a wise person learns from those and isn't afraid to ask for help. And I think that's the whole process. And we've had a coach for many years, and it's definitely transformed our lives and our business, and our employees are better for it. The community, we're able to serve more people because of it. And I always look at it as like a different perspective on stuff. You know what I mean? They don't say, well, do this or do that. Well, he might, but it's a look, this is my suggestion. This is something that based on my experience, will work. And, as a person making your own life, you can choose to go or not, but a lot of times it'll save you years of headaches and problems. And that's with anything, I think, just not in business, but just life in general. Sometimes don't be scared to ask for help. So,
yep, agreed.
Man, I love it. All right, Adrian, what's your favorite place to eat in the 302?
In the 302.
That's a hard one.
Favorite place probably would be One Coastal. It's a tough answer though. I've got a couple others that are really high up. Yeah. It depends what mood you're in, like if I want to go out and if I want to have a good drink with dinner, I'm going to probably go to One Coastal. I want to have a nice glass of wine, have a nice Italian meal, I'm going to Perucci's.
Love it.
I love those two places. And they're close to us, and we know the owners, great friends, great businesses. There's a lot of other ones out there, there's a lot of
so many.
restaurants. So
I think that's one of the best things I love about this place. There's so many good places to eat, and the people are just always amazing.
Yeah, it's
all right, guys. You heard everything. Salted Vines, check them out. They've got all kinds of cool stuff coming up, and this year I'm sure is going to be great. Here we go, lightning round. Best book, tool, software, or video, and why is it so great?
Best book, Art of War.
Oh, love it. Yeah. That's actually third time I've heard that. That's a good one.
I think I would say that not because it was a great read, it was a very boring read, but the takeaway, the message resonates, works in business and in life. appear weak when you're strong, appear strong when you're weak, appear in a position of, superiority when you're really in a position of inferior, all that stuff to position yourself. And it's like sometimes you have to appear mad when you're really not, but you have to appear mad depending on who you're talking to. Or sometimes you really are mad, but you can't show it. And I think that's what I got out of that book.
Control your emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of emotional intelligence type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And, you talk to, some really successful people, they'll say, what changed my life really wasn't what I knew. It was changing my mindset or how I appeared to people around me, and it becoming that person before you've even done it,
Right.
Love it. All right. What's the biggest myth business owners need to know the truth about?
Well, I'm sure you would agree that probably the biggest myth is that, it's a 9-to-5 job and you make all this money, because it's a 24-hour-a-day job and you don't make all this money.
That's it. Yep. Yeah. Usually years of, you got to be passionate about it. I think.
Yeah, you have to enjoy it.
All right, man. Here we go. What is one question I should have asked you, and what's your answer?
One question you should have asked me. What's my best wine?
There it is. What's the best wine?
The answer would be, depends on what you like. My favorite right now, what's on the shelf, and we're almost out of it, is our Syrah Barrel Reserve from 2016. Ooh. It's almost like a port style wine. They were late harvest grapes, like they were 28 brick. So the alcohol is very high. It tastes like a port. Really fruity, really, great bouquet. So right now that's my favorite, but there's only
Say it one more time.
Syrah Barrel Reserve.
Uh-oh, everyone's going to come by it now.
Well, there's only like 3 cases left. Don't everybody run here for it, but you missed out on it if you didn't get it.
Cool. All right, guys. Keep living the 302 lifestyle, everyone. And if you guys are looking to check this out, there's all going to be links below. Mention the 302 lifestyle, and these guys will hook you up. Adrian, thanks for being on. It's a pleasure knowing you, and really blessed to have you guys in our lives, and great that you guys are in town.
Well, thanks, Dylan. We appreciate what you guys do, and it's been fun knowing you and Daisy. So,
all right, and also I know a good eye doctor or eye person. If you're looking for someone,
we'll get her on here for you next. She's better looking than me.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Wish you could spend more time having fun and less time with chores? Go to 302beachtalk.com to get $20 off a home cleaning. You'll be entered to win a completely free cleaning. Eat, play, serve. Sponsored by That Guy with a Broom.